Hi, I'm Trisha Morris at Club Scrap, and I hope you're ready for a fun card making adventure. Today I'll be working with Club Scrap's Mediterranean kit to create a set of 4 of these really cool stair-step cards, and then from that also a set of 4 bonus single fold cards. We do have a craft-along kit available for you to make these cards exactly as you see them, and once you master the technique, you can create even more from the papers you probably already have in your stash. If you've never taken a class with me before, I do recommend watching the entire project before you try to make it again on your own, and then you can work at your own pace. Let's get started. So in front of me here, I have the Craft Along kit that includes some ribbons. We'll just set those aside for now. It has the 8 envelopes required to hold the 8 cards we'll make. We've got some instructions here, and then a sheet of cut-aparts, as well as 4 plain sheets of paper. For my tools today, I'm using my favorite guillotine-style trimmer, and then I also have this handy accordion pocket file. I created this project a long time ago to help me stay organized in smaller spaces. So this little lip here on the organizer just slides underneath the base of my trimmer and holds these pockets vertically. And we'll be making 2 card styles, so I'm going to put everything for the first style of card into the first pocket and everything for the second in the second pocket. If you don't have this, no worries, just keep 2 piles. It's just that I can store a lot of things in a very small space with my little organizer here. Okay, so what we're going to do first is trim all 4 of these papers the exact same way. And since we're doing that, we're going to do 2 sheets at a time. Now, from my instructions here on this very first diagram, you'll notice that there is an arrow pointing from top to bottom on this diagram. So that gives me my first clue as to where I'm going to start. And again, it doesn't really matter which color you start with as long as it's a solid. And we need to find the grain direction of the paper and make sure it dips in the same direction as that arrow that you just saw. To find the grain direction of the paper, hold it by the center of an edge and just kind of give it a wiggle. Then rotate 1 turn, try to wiggle. Now in this case, the paper is very stiff. It's fighting the wiggle. But this way, it droops down quite easily, and that's what I want. I want the paper drooping from top to bottom here, and then the same on the next sheet. So that's kind of stiff. Oh, that's even more stiff. Okay, this is the most wiggly side. You just always win by comparing, okay? If you're not sure, just rotate and check. Now I'm stacking these papers neatly, and I'm going to make my first cut here on both sheets at the same time at 8 3/4. So if you're new to this style of trimmer, just always make sure that your paper is flush on that top edge. And every column on this trimmer represents 1/4 of an inch. So if I want 8 3/4, it's pretty easy. If I just start at 8, and go to the left 3 columns. So that's 8, 8 1/4, 8 1/2, 8 3/4. Confirm your flush at the top. And then for every cut you make, especially with 2 sheets of paper at the same time, push down on the clear bar before you slice. Okay, now we're moving down to 4 1/2. So 4, go to the left 2 vertical columns. I'm at 4 1/2. Stabilize and slice. So these 2 pieces now will be rotated. Notice the other are left sitting to the right of the trimmer blade. And I'm going to cut at 11 3/4. That's a really big number. And that makes a very, very tiny little piece. So these 2 pieces end up being scraps. And you can either leave them lay there or set them aside. And then 1 more slice. I'm just going to slide down now to 10 inches. These 2 pieces are going to become card bases. They need to be scored, but for now I'm just going to set them aside. And then I have this narrow rectangle here, and I'm going to make some tiny panels with this. So bear with me. Our first cut on the horizontal here is at 3 3/4. And then 2 1/2. I know these are small slices. And then 1 1/4, and it's okay. Now we've got a set of 6. It's 3 each of 2 colors, right? I'm just going to set these in a little pile. I'm not going to put them in a pocket, just put them on a little pile. And then you do end up with 2 smaller little scraps. The next pair of strips I'll pick up, and currently these are 4 1/4 by 12. We're going to trim horizontally at 11. And this creates another card base eventually. So I'm going to set that aside also to be scored. And then this little strip, I'm going to place it in pocket B. because it's going to be used in the second set of cards. Again, you can also keep that on your tabletop, whatever works. Next, I have this strip, so I'm going to cut it at 7.5 and 3 3/4. 3 3/4. Leave this piece in the trimmer base, rotate it so it's vertical, and cut it 2 3/4. And this piece, this pair of pieces rather, that goes in pocket A. And then you have these little scrappies that fell off the end, but we're going to use them in set B. Then this next rectangle, we're going to also trim this vertically at 2 3/4. Put this in pocket A again with their friends. This goes in B also. And then these larger panels also go in pocket B, or pile B. And that's everything from those two sheets. We get to do a rerun now. So again, all of the cuts, that's what we just did with this. It's pretty amazing if you just take it kind of step by step. So we'll check our grain, make sure we're drooping from top to bottom. And thanks for your patience during this cutting phase. I'm sure you're excited to see how these staircase cards come together after all this, but it's a necessary step to help prepare you to do this on your own with your own paper. We're going to start here at 8 3/4 again, and then 4.5. Rotate the 4.5, and we'll cut at 11 3/4 and 10. That's another pair of card bases. So I'll set it with the others, and then this little rectangle, we're going to make those tiny panels again. So we'll go 3 3/4, 2.5. 1 1/4. And when for little pieces like this, even though I'm working with a large trimmer, just holding this down allows me to make these tiny cuts very, very easy. So now I've got another set of 6 little tiny panels I'm going to add with my other pile. And I've got a few scraps that have accumulated here. Just these, they match. Your only scraps now. And then the next strip, this is 4 1/4 by 12. We'll trim it at 11. This is going to grow up to become a card base, so I'll set it aside to be scored. The small rectangle goes in pocket B. And our last strip, once again, we'll cut at 7.5, 3 3/4, rotate, 2 3/4. This large panel, pocket A, tiny little strips, pocket B. Take the next pair of panels, and once again, trimming at 2 3/4. Pocket A, these little scraps, pocket B. I rescued those scraps. This large pair, larger, relatively speaking, in pocket B. That's it for that guy. Now we have a sheet of cut aparts. These are printed. I've planned meticulously the mapping of this sheet, so it would help us complete all of our cards and create both the sentiments for the outside and inside of the card for all 8 of these greetings. So if you are working with your own materials, you can just follow along and trim a plain sheet of paper so you can stamp on the plain pieces to create the sentiments for your cards. Now, if you look very, very carefully, and I know it's kind of hard to see because it's disguised in that print, there's a tiny little plus sign, or like I'm calling it a registration mark, in every corner, and that's a cut guide. It tells me exactly how much paper to remove from this cut apart to create a perfect 12 by 12. So I'll align that little cut mark with the edge of my blade, and maybe just a little shy of it, and then I'll rotate, and now I can see pretty good here. If I look carefully, I can see that little hash mark here at the top and at the bottom corner of the blade. So I'll slice that off, rotate again, take this, it's about 1/8 of an inch that we're removing, just a tiny bit, and then rotate again. And the reason for this step, now at this point, from here to here is exactly 12 inches. When our big industrial size trimmers were cutting the paper, the accuracy wasn't what it needed to be. So what I like about this trimmer too is that if you just need to take a hair of paper off, you can do that, and it does a beautiful job. So these are just little scraps I'm going to throw away. And now I'm going to rotate this cut apart so that the narrowest strip is on the right and the words "everything in moderation" will be on the left. So our first cut here, and as we trim, just let those papers pile up. We're going to cut at 10.5. And I'm still stabilizing on the clear bar, 8 3/4, 7, and 3.5. At this point, you can take these two pieces and stack them neatly together, the two strips that are the same size, and we're going to trim them the same way. So we're going to start at 10, and then 7.5, 5, and 2.5. So now you can gather up all of the pieces, and there should be a pair at the bottom that's a little skinnier. So these are one size, and then there's another pair that are smaller. The ones that are all the same, those go in pocket A, and these other two go in pocket B. Now the next pair of strips, we're going to cut this into all these little pieces, and I'd like to show you why we're doing that. We're creating the printed panels that go to decorate our staircase cards. So that's why you've got this strip here of art, but we're going to cut it into small pieces. And each piece is going to be 1 1/4 inch wide, and I have all the numbers for you in the instructions, but I'll just call them out to make it easy. And if you want, you can turn the paper, the plain side to face each other, and that makes it a little less slippery. Okay, so let's go ahead here. And we're going to trim at 10 3/4. And 9.5. 8 1/4. 7. Notice every time I'm pushing here, hold those papers. 5 3/4. 4.5. 3 1/4. 2, and that's where we stop. All right. So here we have, if I just flip this around, I have two little sentiments, and these are going to go in pocket B for that second set of cards. And then these others, and if you want, you can just flip them all to be the right side up at this point. You can do that, or you can do it later. The size of these panels matches the size of all the other little pieces we made earlier. So this in total will help finish off our cards. We did all the trimming at the same time. That's the joy of this assembly line process. And then this last strip, we'll just trim at 9, 6, and 3. And this contains the inner sentiments for our second set of cards. So those go in pocket B. And that's all there is to it. Okay, so the next step will be to swap out our trimmer for a score pal. Now, if you don't have something like this, you can always use a ruler, a soft surface, and I mean, it would be a little bit more of a challenge. I do recommend picking up something like this so you can score effectively. It really helps your projects have a professional look. So here I'm going to place this paper in here horizontally so that this is the 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece. Make sure you have the 11 inch piece. And just score it in half at 5.5. And then find the others like it. So here's another 11 inch piece, score at 5.5. And repeat that for the remaining 2. So you have a total of 4 card bases that are just your typical card size. Now, when you fold a card in half, you want to bury the bump of that score line. So this is an indentation, this is a bump, and you can use the score pal as a little card holder for you to help you find your aligned edges perfectly. So even if you didn't score this, we trim the paper with the grain, meaning we're going to fold it in the way it wants to go, right? And bury the bump of the score line inside of the fold. So now with them all folded, just take a bone folder and you can burnish that score line easily, all 4 cards at the same time, and place them in pocket B. We have quite a bit more scoring to do on the pieces that measure 4.5 by 10. I'm going to start on the vertical here, and my first line will be at 1.5, and then 3. Then rotate and score at 2 and 6. Next, I want you to flip the paper, bringing the bottom up to the top, and score at 4 and 8. And you can turn it back over to where we started, and we'll repeat that again. So 1.5, 3, rotate, 2, 6, flip, 4 and 8. Flip it back and put it on your pile. We get to do that twice more. 1.5, 3, rotate, 2, 6, flip, 4, 8, flip and pile. 1.5, 3, 2, 6, flip, 4, 8, flip and pile. That's it for the scoring. Now I have all of these beautiful scored card bases, and I want to do a little trick with you. So we're going to make an accordion fold out of this, following the same principle of burying the bump. Okay, so the bump of the score line here goes on the inside of the fold. We are not going to fold on these horizontal lines, only these shorter vertical lines. So if I just go back to bury this bump, here the bump goes on the inside of the fold, and then you just basically fan fold and make your little creases. You can do that for all of your cards. And it goes so easily because we're folding with the grain. Now at this point I need to add 2 cuts, and I'm specifically choosing scissors that have long blade so I can just do it in one snip, and that'll give me a straighter cut. So I need to cut from here, this first score line, along this horizontal score line until I reach the third. So 1, 2, 3, from 1 to 3 on this line. So to do that most efficiently, I'm going to close that and cut right along that crease or that score line. Okay, that's it. So now I have a cut from here to here. I also need one from here to here, so from the 2nd to the 4th line. So if I just close, I can do that as well, and you will have a picture of these cuts right in your instructions. So there's my bottom cut and the top cut. We'll repeat that on the other cards. So I just have to remember what's what. Here's my cut along the bottom. And then this one I can make from the front. And then repeat that with the next card. It's important to remember that you're never going to start your cut from a free edge. You'll always start it from a folded edge. That's the best way to avoid an error. So notice my scissors is at a folded edge, and then again at a folded edge here. One from the back side and one from the front of the card. I hope that's not too confusing. So now I'm going to distribute all of the pieces to all of these cards. So I'm going to start out by distributing my blue card base. Maybe we'll go this way, blue. And then I'm going to take the light yellow. So there's a dark yellow and a light yellow. And then a gold. And finally the dark yellow. So I call this part of the deal, right? So if I go into my organizer and I grab everything out of pocket A, I'm going to deal things out. So first I'm going to sort out these panels, and there's going to be 2 of these panels for each card. So I'm going to take the light yellow, and that panel is going to go in the upper left corner of this card, and then a gold will go in the lower right. Then gold in the upper left, and dark yellow in the lower right for this card. Dark yellow and blue, blue and light yellow. Does it have to be these colors on these cards? No, it's just one way to distribute color, okay? That's all I'm really looking at. Now we have all of these sentiments, and these are sized to nest on top of the original little rectangle there. So everything in moderation, including moderation. Then I can't think of a better person to be older than me. Happy birthday, I love that. Then we have sorry, that's the pits. I'll click for that one. I hope things are better soon. And lastly, I just hugged you in my thoughts. I hope you felt the squeeze. I like that too. All these sentiments are so fun. The graphics are so beautiful. I love that Mediterranean theme and all those gorgeous colors. Now, so remember all these little panels? I'm going to put 4 onto each one of these cards. You have a total of 16. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 3 each of the colors. So this card with the lemon yellow on the upper left corner gets 3 of the dark yellow to just round out all the colors. So every color we trimmed of the 4 is represented on this one card. So even just looking at this, I can see the light yellow is missing. So I'm going to add 3 light yellow panels to this card. And then 3 blue will go on this one, and 3 gold go here. That's kind of how I do the distribution. At this point, I think it'll be wise for us to officially make one of the cards. So here's what I would suggest, is you grab all of the pieces, say for this 4th card, and I'm going to pop them into an envelope. This is the larger of the 2 we've included, the A6 envelope. And just put all of these pieces together. So when you go to make the rest of your cards, everything you need is right in the envelope, and you don't have to hunt anything down, and you can stay nice and organized. So I'll take this last set here, and we'll make this blue one together. Okay, for this step, you're just going to need some adhesive. You can use a ribbon if you like. I did add a little loop of ribbon on my finished card samples, but what I noticed is that it made the card a little top heavy. So if you're going to add it, I'd recommend adding it to the bottom, and maybe I can do that with you on this one just as an example. Okay, so let's just do the easy part now. It's just adhering things. You're going to love this. All right, so everything in moderation, and including moderation are the sentiments. So I can just get those nested. That's the only thing that really has a double nest. And then I can flip them over again, add my adhesive to these 2. I love my little ATG gun. It's the most economically efficient method. So now on this card base, make sure you have this area, this section of 4 cubes that are connected. That's where the upper left greeting will go. And if it's not there, flip it. Then you have another section of 4 cubes in the lower right corner. That's where the second half of the sentiment will go. Now at this point, every single rectangle that remains is going to get a panel. So to save time, I can simply add some adhesive across the middle of these panels. And I went out of my boundary a little bit there. That's okay. And I'll start out with a print. So I'm going to nest this print right into that rectangular opening, and then alternate it with the yellow, the print, and I'm just climbing the steps here. Walking up the steps, alternating my colors. The next step, only 2 more to go, and believe it or not, my card is complete. How awesome is that? Now, how do we close it? Well, if you just push down firmly on this right side and you push forward from the left, it naturally goes. All that effort, all that scoring and accordion folding allows it to just go right where it needs to go. You can do a little burnishing of those score lines if you like. And even burnish from the back side if you would like. And now I have this really cool lay flat for mail pop up and display card. So nice. So again, with the ribbon added, I just made a loop and taped it to the back of the sentiment before I nested it, but that just made the card very top heavy. So this is just something you learn by doing. I do have the ribbon, and again, I would recommend just maybe sticking with the bottom of the card, or can be right here. But either way, now the card lays perfectly flat and it has this clever step up construction. Isn't that fun? Okay, so I'm going to set this aside for now. Remember, you've got your other 3 cards and they all, you know how all the pieces come into play. I hope you're marveling at how incredibly simple this card came together with all the preparation that we did in advance. So an ounce of preparation certainly saves you a lot of frustration and makes you incredibly efficient. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cards all ready to go with their envelopes. Let's set these aside and make our bonus cards. Even though these are simple single fold cards, I have a bunch of tips I want to share with you. So first we need to make our deal. So I'm going to take everything out of the second pocket where all of the sentiments and little pieces can be found. What I usually do first is just sort everything by size. So of course you have your card bases, you have various sentiments, both inside and outside. And then you've got strips that are a little wider. And then a whole bunch of strips that are pretty skinny. So I'm gonna just make some piles here. And starting out, we're gonna deal the blue and the yellow, and then gold and dark yellow. Now, when you're working with leafing through color to distribute it like what we are doing here, I recommend by looking at the first card base, choose that color for the next layer. So I'm going to go blue, the light yellow goes onto the gold, and then the gold will go onto the dark yellow, and the dark yellow goes onto the blue. Okay, now I'm looking at this yellow panel. I'm going to add a wide yellow, dark yellow strip to this card. Blue goes here, yellow goes there, gold goes here. Now I ended with light yellow here, so I'm going to start with it here, light yellow. Then this is my cue that it's going to be gold. This is my cue that it'll be dark yellow, and this is my cue that it will be blue. Okay, that's just our colors and our layering and our anchoring and things. So now we have sentiments to distribute. The 2 larger ones are going to go here. So you deserve more than just a card. And then your year is waiting. The inside for this one is you deserve more than just a card. So I sent an envelope too. Enjoy. Your year is waiting. Go get it. Here we have it's your day. Choose to another year filled with happiness. And then all of me loves all of you. That's a nice pun. Okay, so same deal. I can take the card ingredients for this and plop it into an envelope. And what I want to mention right now is I do this every single month for our card membership. So if you become a member of Club Scrap with the card kit, our card club, this is how we do it, except we make 12 cards. So 3 different sets of 4 cards each. And now these are ready to assemble when I'm done, and we can do this one together. I'll share some tips along the way. Now, one option that you have is to add some texture to this panel with an embossing folder. I don't have that included in the kit, but if you want, you can take a file. I have this one from Doris that's really pretty. It has the tile shapes on it that are very reminiscent of that that Mediterranean style ceramic tile. So I'm just going to sandwich this in here and quick run over to my embossing machine and impress that. Now it's likely that the majority of you have a machine like that. So if you don't, you don't have to. I did not emboss mine so on my first round, and but I find that it really adds a nice touch, and it's probably a plate a lot of you may have. So what I can do now is just take some adhesive, and I've got a really large margin on this blue card base from the blue to this panel. I'm going to reach for my little handy 2x8 grid ruler, and I'm going to make sure this is perfectly centered. So the card itself is 5.5. So to find my 0 center, I should get a reading of 2 3/4 on this side and 2 3/4 on that side. And then now I'm up 1/2 inch from the bottom, and I'm in 1/2 inch from the edges. And now my panel is perfectly centered. I have that issue of gluing, attaching panels downhill, uphill, mostly downhill. So if you have that issue as well, join me in using a grid ruler to solve that problem, and you'll nail it every time. Now this little strip, I'm gonna attach 1/4 of an inch from the left edge of this panel. And again, the ruler comes in to help me get that alignment perfect. See how it's right on there? Now this is something that, you know, in most cases would end up as a scrap, but I'm like, no, that is not a scrap. If I just take scissors and I cut a point into each short edge of this cute little piece, it's no longer a scrap, it's a little banner. And then I can take my, this is my bookbinding glue that we carry at Club Scrap, and I put it in a little needle tip applicator. And the reason I'm using it here is because it's so narrow. And I'm gonna eyeball this time. I'm gonna add that right to the middle of that strip. So again, I was able to add a 4th color just by upgrading something from the circular file. Now here is my sentiment. I can either center this, or maybe I could add some ribbon. I think I'm gonna go with, I'm gonna add a piece of this pretty blue satin here. I'm gonna cut a small piece, and this time I'm gonna take some tape. Fold the ribbon with uneven ends and just add a piece of tape to it so that the tape extends past both edges. And then I'm going to just add this cute little loop of ribbon to the upper right corner of my panel. You could staple it also, either way. You can add it with regular adhesive or maybe some foam adhesive circles. We have those too, and I really like them for adding to my cards, but in this case, I'll just allow it to be flat. There's a lovely, lovely card with a nice joke on the inside, and I still have this other little scrap here. So once again, I will add a little notch into this. I'm just eyeballing it. Come back with my glue. I do this all the time with my scraps. Why throw them away when they can add a little splash of color to your card? Now, is that level? It looks kind of downhill to me. I can bring in my ruler and verify. And because I'm using a wet glue, I can still level it out. And I had to. It was definitely downhill. Ruler does not lie. And here I can just accent this little message with, so I sent an envelope too. You can even make a little mini origami envelope and put it in there. That would be really cute. Oh, I love ideas. All right, so there's your card. Now the other ones go together the same way. So here is an example of the next card, and with an embossed area, I stapled the ribbon instead of taping it. So you've got a lot of options. Then the other two will be vertical cards. In this case, I did the ribbon loop and centered my little piece here. Again, used my ruler to help everything stay on the level. And here is that 4th card. All of me loves all of you. Isn't that just the sweetest thing ever? I love it. Now, again, what I love about this method is that your time is treasured, and so are your materials. When you have just this measly amount of scrap, you could have probably even added it to your cards. I don't know. I'm sure you could. That's an impressive way to create something when you know the outcome is going to be successful if you just follow along. So you have these instructions now, and you can simply substitute 4 papers for the first cuts, and then a plain sheet for the cut apart. It won't be printed, it'll be plain, and then grab some stamps. For example, this is a set of stamps that I call Fun and Games. It was from one of our collections that we've done in the past. Love this set. And the images were kind of a nice fit for this set of cards. So I decided to use papers from the Fun and Games kit, in this case, a black, a pattern, a red, and a print from that collection. And then I made a set of 8 cards. So here we took these images and stamped them onto the panels, and you can see my really fun, aren't these great? So I didn't have a print, but I had this pattern here of the checkerboard. So I was able to use that to create a printed panel here for all of these cards. Isn't that fun? All of these sentiments were just stamped. The same exact formula was followed. And now I have these 4 Fun and Games cards, plus the bonus cards. So Queen for the Day, Happy Birthday. You can see I did the same kind of a layout, the same setup. So you don't really have to spend a lot of time navigating the mechanics of it. And you can just invest creatively and figure out how you're going to use what you have to make more beautiful things. And that's what Club Scrap is all about. Now, on the brighter side of things, I made some cards with the sheet of stamps that we designed for our Buttercup collection. This is What's Up Buttercup stamp sheet. And I used these images to create yet another set of 8 cards. We've got the 4 staircase in which I stamped on the 2 white panels cut from white paper, and then I also used a portion of one of the prints to create the printed elements for those remaining little rectangular areas. So 4 adorable Buttercup cards, staircase cards, and then the 4 bonus cards turned out beautifully as well. I just love how these worked out, and I used a little embossing folder for this one as well. Super cute sentiments and images on that sheet. And as I mentioned before, we do have a card club. So this is an example of our Mediterranean card kit, which is different from the craft along kit that we had that made the staircase card. So you basically get a series of plain and printed papers and the cut aparts so that if you're not a stamper, you don't have to stamp to make your cards. I know sometimes stamping is a lot of fun, but it also requires a lot more supplies. I have people who are camping this summer who brought their card kits and their page kits and did it right at the campsite. And we have several goodies lined up. And from this set, along with the instructions in the video, they make a set of 4 never-ending cards. And this, again, is with a Mediterranean card kit. So much fun. And so, again, 4 of these using all the goodies that come in the collection. And then you make a set of 4 of these split flat cards that are really fun, using up, again, those tags that are included. And then a set of 4 just single fold cards as well, using the washi tape that came in this collection as well. So this is a lot of fun. Believe it or not, a membership for our card club is only $24.95 a month. You really can't go wrong, especially it includes the envelopes. So you get all of this plus a dozen envelopes, and you're always learning something new along with me. I'm learning every month, and so are you. And I just look forward to having you as a member of the Club Scrap family. Now, from reading comments on past workshops from all vendors, I know that some of you aren't stampers at all, and you're like, can you give me something? I'm a scrapbooker. Stop showing me card stuff. I want to know scrapbooking stuff. We follow the same exact principles I just showed you of using formulas efficiently to create pages. So for example, this is the page kit version of the Mediterranean kit that released from Club Scrap in August. And it comes with the papers and the cut aparts necessary, just like the cut aparts we used on our cards today. And then this makes 8 finished pages. So literally using the same kind of a method that I showed you with the cards, we follow those principles as well in how we approach creating our 12 by 12 scrapbook pages as well. And projects too. We have a lot of projects that go along that use a page kit as a project. But again, following the formulas, the trimming processes, so that there's very little waste. And speaking of formulas, if you are a member of Club Scrap, whether you're a card member or a page member, I do even design a page formula every month that all of our members receive with their membership that tells you what to gather, as far as your paper and exactly how to trim it and cut by cut so that you can create your own layouts, again, using paper from your stash. So this layout could easily be replicated literally with any 5 sheets of paper, which is really cool. And one of the things I'm most proud of about Club Scrap. While I really hope you had fun, most importantly, I hope you learned something new. If you've been taking workshops with me for a while, perhaps you're like, yeah, I know about that. I know about the ruler. I know about all these tricks. But it's my goal to always share new, innovative ways to make cards and scrapbook pages with you. Again, come and join us as a